everybody, I'm Kristen, and today I'm going to be doing a series check-in for all of these series that I currently have on the go, the ones that I've DNF'd and finished since the last time I checked in, which was in the end of summer 2023, so I'm definitely due for a good check-in. Personally, I find these videos a little bit oddly intimidating to do, as I tend to make too many complicated categories, and I feel a weird amount of guilt for how many series I have started versus finished in any given year. And so I tend to put this off, even though I have no real hang up on that. I just feel the experience of shame and guilt in the moment when it's happening. I also don't have a very good tracking system. So I was recently inspired by Abby Salter and her channel to make some changes on how I not only record, but check in with the series that I have on the go. In particular, I really like the way in her yearly series check-in that she categorizes the books into just 4 simple categories: the ones that she has finished, DNF'd, the ones that she is caught up in, like there's no other published books that she could read, versus the ones that she has ongoing. I found the idea of approaching it in that way rather freeing, so I'm going to try to make this video around the end of the Q1 mark every year to try to help keep myself accountable in ticking off series, or at least finishing series that I want to be reading and getting caught up in the ones that I'm enjoying. So with that being said, I'm going to share all of these series that I need to update you on since I last did this video, or a similar video, in 2023, and we'll go from there. I'm going to start with these series that I have finished, and I'm not going to give too many details on any particular series. There's a lot to talk about today, so let's just jump into it with the series that I have officially finished since I last did this video in 2023, and that includes The Space Between Worlds, which I don't think is getting any more books, but I also don't officially know, so it'll stay in this category, in this column, until I hear otherwise. The Witch's Compendium of Monsters is an Eastern European folklore fantasy inspired duology where both books came out last year. I also finished the Legends of the First Empire series, a new, if not favorite, definitely beloved series by Michael J. Sullivan. The Invisible Library series by Genevieve Cogman, which I definitely recommend if you are looking for good palette cleansers to read in between big, chunky, complicated things, and a big series. It's 8 books that you could slowly work through over the course of 1 or 2 years. A good problem of the week kind of series. So I recommend that if you're looking for something like that. I have Crescent City down here. I have recently heard rumblings that there might be more. I definitely didn't think that book felt very complete, but I just assumed she was going to do a spin-off. So it'll stay in this column, similar to Space Between Worlds, until I hear otherwise. The Tawny Man trilogy by Robin Hobb. I am stuck here in the series because I don't have a ton of interest in the quartet, but I do want to keep reading on in this world. I finished the Greenbone Saga by Fonda Lee with the Jade Legacy last year, and damn, that series is so good. If you haven't picked it up yet, you're definitely missing out. 2 series that I have finished this year includes Strange the Dreamer duology, which is definitely a new favorite. I would love to reread, and I'd love to read more by Laini Taylor, as well as Burning Blade and Silver Eye, a sci-fantasy trilogy I just recently completed with the last book, Empire of Ruin, that you'll be able to hear about in my April wrap-up. Most of the series that I have in my DNFs column are ones where I don't have super strong feelings about, and that's really kind of why they're DNFs, and I didn't hate them for the most part, but I also just don't care enough to continue on in the series. There's so many other series that I have ongoing where I'd like to read. There's so many other new releases. There's so many other books that I would like to check out more so than the particular sequel in any of these situations. That being said, this is not set in stone. If I randomly get the urge to pick up one of the sequels in these series, I'm going to give myself the freedom to do that. But it gives me a little peace of mind to put them in this column. It takes the pressure off needing to complete them. So that includes the Iron Widow duology, which just wasn't for me, the Age of Assassins series by R.J. Barker that I started last year, the First Sister trilogy, which I actually DNF'd in the middle of the 3rd and final book. Really recommend the first book in that series. The rest of it just went in a direction I didn't enjoy. Once Upon a Broken Heart, yeah, that's it, by Stephanie Garber. It's just not a series for me, I'm afraid. the Jasmine Throne trilogy by Tasha Suri, and the Swordcatcher series by Cassandra Clare, both books that I started, or both series that I started last year and just don't see myself reading on in, as well as Divine Rivals, even though there's only one more book in that duology. I just don't think that it's going to happen for me personally. The Wayfarer series by Becky Chambers, I think I had this as like a maybe the last time that I checked in, but honestly, I enjoyed that first book. If we were following on with other characters, or with the same characters, maybe I would, but I don't think it's going to happen. Dark Apprentice is a self or indie pub series following a sociopath that I actually found really frustrating to read from. And Fourth Wing by Rebecca Yarros is just not the romantasy for me at this time. A Touch of Darkness by Scarlett Sinclair. I've tried a few of her books and she's not the writer for me, I'm afraid. I know The Queen's Thief is super beloved, but I have some problems with the relationship and it's not something that I can overlook despite how much everybody loves this series. The Black Dagger Brotherhood. I don't really feel like I need to explain myself. I picked the first book up out of curiosity there. And The House of Salt and Sorrow. I know it has more in this world. I just don't think it's going to be for me. Now I'm going to share all of these series where I am officially caught up in. These are the ones where the next book isn't yet published. There's going to be definitely a few on here that are getting sequels this year. So at some point I'll have to move them over to the ongoing column, but I'm going to share with them at this moment. So Quicksilver, I am currently caught up in Quicksilver by Callie Hart. The Adventures of Amina Al-Sarafi is a series that I started this year and am currently caught up in. The Fallen Gods is a trilogy that I'm actually currently in the middle of reading the final book, which was just released at the beginning of this month. There's definitely some here that have their sequels were released like in April and I have not yet moved them, so I'm just going to do them here now so that I don't forget about it when I'm talking about ongoing. But The Fallen Gods is the Godkiller series, which I really, really enjoy, and I will be telling you more about that hopefully in my April wrap-up, if not May. The Silver Blood Promise I still have as ongoing. This is definitely a potential DNF, but I'm going to see what the reviews are like for the second book when it comes out this year. Heart and Mercy is getting another book in, I think, July or August of this year as well, which is sort of like a contemporary-ish type romance, but set in a fantastical world. The Library Trilogy, again, by Mark Lawrence, just had the conclusion, the third and final book in that series released at the beginning of this month. So it is officially moved into the ongoing category, but I'm going to tell you about it now so I don't forget about that one. And I do plan on picking up The Broke That Held Her Heart quite soon. Same goes with The Tainted Cup. The sequel just came out at the beginning of this month as well, and I will be reading A Drop of Corruption. I'm on hold for it at the library. The Sunken Archive, if I'm remembering correctly, that is A Letter from the Luminous Deep. I'm not certain. I would assume that the sequel is coming out this year, but really, really looking forward to reading that. I forget the name of it. I'm totally blanking, but this is a series where the whole book is an exchange of letters between various characters. I'm based on where we left, I'm really unsure if that could continue on into the next book, but we'll see. A Fate Inked in Blood, I don't think that's the name of the series, but that is the name of the first book. And actually, I think the sequel, and apparently it's only a duology, is going to be coming out in the next couple months. So a lot of these, it seems like, are actually, like, I'm feeling really good about, like, I'm actually gonna be able to, like, move these into the finish column this year, which is really, really great. Legends and Lattes, I think that that's getting another one. So, again, currently caught up in Hierarchy. Oh, that's the Will of the Many series. So again, another one that is getting a sequel this year. I'm going to be hopefully doing a recap video for this. I make a lot of promises on recap videos and then don't always follow through. But I would really, really like to make that video. I'm planning on rereading the Will of the Many quite soon. The Locked Tomb series, we are just forever waiting for Alecto the Ninth. And I saw another video say, like, take all the time that you need. I want that book to be, like, perfect and not rushed. So while I would love to get it as soon as possible, I totally agree that Tamsin Muir should take her time on that one. The Band, oh man. I think the second book, Bloody Rose, came out in like 2018. I have not heard anything about Outcast Empire. A Study in Drowning. Thought it was a standalone. Apparently it's getting a sequel this year. I am forgetting the name of that sequel, so I will pop up the cover there for you. The Burning is the Evan Winter series that started with Rage of Dragons? Is that what it was called? We're apparently finally getting another book in that series, which is going to be 4 or 5 series. I don't think I have any plans to pick that sequel up this year. And in fact, it is definitely a potential DNF series where I didn't love the first book. The second book had some improvements for me, and I'm just going to wait to see what the reviews are like before I make any decisions on that one. Officially, The Counselor is still ongoing, but the author has been open about some issues that she's had with the publishing company, and it's a bit of a sore spot for her, understandably. So that one is, I think, one where I doubt that I will ever get a sequel, but I do really, really love that first book. ACOTAR, I don't know, I guess I'm caught up on that. We'll see if I read the next book. Little Thieves is one where I am currently reading the conclusion that also came out in April. Really looking forward to getting you my thoughts on that one. And then the Singing Hills cycle, which is always a series that I say that I have finished, and then without fail I find out that it's getting another book. So unlike The Space Between Worlds, which is always going to linger in the finished column until I hear otherwise, this one is just always going to be lingering in the caught up column until I hear otherwise, and I think that we are getting another one this year as well. So that is all of the books that I'm caught up on, and like a solid percentage of those are getting books this year. Were there any that weren't? There was like a couple, like The Locked Tomb and The Band, but most of those, let's see, 319 I think series that I mentioned there, almost all of those are getting sequels this year, most of which I plan on reading this year. So that's really crazy. Now we're going to talk about the series that I have ongoing. I'm going to try not to make so many comments. Oh my god, it's so hard. But these are ones where obviously I have started, and there are books that are published existing in the world, and I just haven't had the chance to pick them up. There is a broad spread of years that where I have like picked up since I have first picked up the first book, going as far back as 2020. There is one series here that I read like when I was in university, maybe that's when I started, and I would like to get back to that series. So I have put it on this list to like hold myself a little bit more accountable there. So series that I have ongoing: The Murderbot Diaries by Martha Wells, Mages of the Wheel by J.D. Evans, The Crimson Moth by, what's her name? Kristen Ciccarelli. That one I'm on hold for the conclusion to the duology at the library, so I should be able to move that to the finished column hopefully in the next couple months. The World of Kate Daniels. Actually, I think this is going to be a DNF. I've gotten some good feedback on where the rest of the series goes and how romantic it is, and I might actually instead try other series by Alona Andrews, the author. The Shepherd King. Oh, another one where actually, okay, so I think at the time I hadn't decided, but I also think that The Shepherd King is going to be a DNF, so you'll see next year, I guess, for sure. Either I will read The Twisted Crown this year, or I will officially move this one into the DNF column. Legacy of the Brightwash. Oh, definitely the best book that I read in 2024. I just have to get around to buying the sequel to keep reading on in that series. Lady of Darkness. Again, I think this is going to be moved to the DNF column as well. I read the first 2 books, and I think the plagiarism kind of bothers me a little bit more. So I don't love it so much that I can overlook the uncomfortable similarities in that one. Although I have heard that it kind of becomes its own thing as of now, like as of the 3rd book and beyond. That one's going to be a mood thing. I could potentially see myself picking it up, but we'll really see on that one. If I find other romantasy books that I like better, then I'm going to read on in those series instead of that one. Gale Song by Shauna Lawless. The Land of the Living and the Dead, the last book in that series, was actually one of my priority reads for last year. However, I've since discovered that I cannot switch formats in the middle of a series unless I'm like struggling with that format. I started that series in audiobook. My library only has an ebook for The Land of the Living and the Dead, and I cannot bring myself to read it in that format. I want the narrator to read it to me. The Pomegranate Gate by Ariel Kaplan. The second book came out at the end of last year. I haven't had a chance to check out the reviews. I don't see any 3rd book listed yet, but it also only describes the second book as a sequel, not conclusion. So I'm not sure if we're going to be getting any more there. The First Law series, I am in the middle of that, so that is really nice, and I have actually made progress. I read The Blade itself, the second book there this year. The Broken Earth series, the second book was a priority read. It's one of the only priority reads. That and The Land of the Living and the Dead and like one or two more things are the only priority reads that I didn't get to last year. This one is always just going to be like, when the mood is right, I'll pick up The Obelisk Gate. Empire of Exiles, the name of the first book, not the series, which I think is Books of the Usurper by Aaron M. Evans, is super underhyped. My library just has not yet gotten a copy of the second book, so I would really like to get a hold of that at some point. Empire of the Wolf, same goes. My library has the first two books and did not get a copy of the third one, so just all kind of always waiting on my library with some series, unfortunately. Hunt the Stars, I have to get back into this. It is a sci-fi romance series that I think will just be a mood thing. The next time I'm in the mood for something like this, I should really check out to see if I can get a copy of the next one. Kithmar is actually, maybe I'm only caught up. It was officially supposed to be getting its third and final book. I still have to read the second book and continue on, and that's one where we're getting the same. This is a series set in a single city over the span of a year, where we're actually getting like 3 different stories, or the year happening, and then all of the political things that are happening within that city over the course of 1 year from 3 different perspectives, but over and over and over. Really interesting concept. The World of the Five Gods is the series containing the Curse of Chalian, which I read last year by Lois McMaster Bujold. I definitely have to put a little bit of time and effort into figuring out what the next direction, like what the next best route for direction is there. I think it's like a world of companion books and like novellas and things like that, rather than direct sequels. If it was a direct sequel, I would have read it. The Emily Wilde series, I am actually currently reading the third and final book in that trilogy, so I will be able to move that into the finished column definitely before you see this video next year. The Shattered Sands series. I read the first book in that series, The 12 Kings of Sherikai, last year, and I just have to get up the time really to like sit down and focus on the sequel. I did try picking up the audiobook for that second book last year, and there was just a lot more details and specific like names and things that I wanted to have the right amount of focus to put into that, but it's definitely a series that I would like to continue on with. Actually, in fact, I think that sequel is one of my 25 books to read in 2025 this year. Paladin's Grace, I think I've decided that I'd like to start. I read the first book and I'm going to start like this world over from the beginning. It's just not a super priority for me, but again, like something that I technically do have on the go. The Kingdom is another book or series where I have been stymied by my library having a copy of the first book, but never getting a copy of the second book, which came out in the second half of last year. And it is in fact a series that is getting its conclusion to the trilogy this year. So that is a series, the first book being These Burning Stars, that you could pick up and read all the way through this year. It is a fantastic sci-fi series where the first book starts out as like this cat and mouse chase, and then things expand from there. So definitely check out that series if it sounds interesting to you. The Forever Desert, that is the Lies of the Ajungo series, which I think is going to be a collection of novellas. I'm not sure, there's at least 2 out. I've only read the first one. And I would definitely give that a check out at some point when the mood strikes me. It's not super high up there on the priority. The Bridge Kingdom is a series where the next book in the series, which is not the Inadequate Heir, of The Endless War. That is one of my 25 books to read in 2025. In fact, I got about 85-90% of the way into that book when the library took back my copy. So I'm on hold for it again, and I will definitely be finishing that. And moving on into the 5th book, which is already out in the 6th book, which perhaps could be coming out this year. That is a fantasy romance series that I'm sure you have heard about. Regency Fairy Tales. I'm stuck on the last book. I don't know if I'm ever going to get to it. That might actually be a DNF. So if you read the last book, I think it's like the daughter of perhaps some people earlier on in that series, but if you read the last book in that series and I am definitely missing out by not finishing it, please tell me. Greatcoats. This is a maybe. I'm 2 books in, 2 weeks to go, and not sure if it's for me. It goes to some dark places. Well, like I agree that there's like swashbuckling humor, etc. Everybody always talks about that, and they always fail to not talk about the really horrifying darkness of the villains that go to some places that are just really uncomfortable to read for me personally. I also think that my library switch, they like had the audio in the first book and I fell in love with the narration, and then they have only since had the ebooks. So again, I really struggle to switch formats. If I like a narrator, I want to keep hearing the book in that narration. The Faithful and the Fallen is a maybe, to be honest. I picked up the first book a while back, and the Bloodsworn Saga, which I also have on this list, I might as well do that now. The Bloodsworn Saga, both by John Gwynne. I am more likely to continue on reading in the Bloodsworn Saga than I am in The Faithful and the Fallen. And if I really fall in love with the Bloodsworn Saga, maybe I will continue back with the other series, but it could also just as likely be on the DNF column next year. Same goes for the God King Chronicles. I've had this one as a maybe for a really long time. I think at some point I'm just gonna have to like really commit to a decision to either move on or let it go. Chronicles of the Unhewn Throne, same goes. At this point, I would have to reread the first 2 books in order to finish the third book, but that is one of the oldest books. It's the second oldest series on this list. It's the only one from a series that I started from 2020 that I have not since either finished or DNF'd. So that one again, yeah, I think maybe by next year, maybe I'll highlight a couple of these as like, if they're still in the ongoing category next year, maybe you think about moving them to to DNFs. The Rose and Rook trilogy by M.A. Carrick is another one where the sequel, Labyrinth's Heart, is on my 25 books to read in 2025. So I'm going to be getting to that one and finally finishing off one of my favorite series of all time. Bloodsong by Anthony Ryan is a series that I absolutely would have to reread. I read the first 2 books and really enjoyed them. Everyone says the second and third books are not as good. I would agree that they're like different from the first book, but for whatever reason, I didn't pick up the third book in the time, and now I'm gonna have to go back and reread them. So we'll see if that ever happens. And then the one that I mentioned, which is like a series that I read ages and ages ago and never read the third book, so now I definitely have to reread the first 2, and that is the Nyama trilogy. I'm never sure if I'm saying that name right, by Jacqueline Carey. This is like the third set of trilogies in the Kushiel's World series, but it's one that like took place hundreds and hundreds of years later, and I just didn't connect to the main character of this series in quite the same way, and I never wound up finishing it. So that's one that I'm potentially going to be picking up and starting over sometime soon. So there you have it, all of these series that I have finished, DNF'd, ongoing, and caught up in. There's definitely a lot of series, it seems like, that are going to be getting their conclusions this year, so that'll be really great to finish off if I'm able to get to those books in this year. Let me know how you keep track of your series. Is it something that you really care about? It's something that I haven't previously cared about, but for whatever reason, every time I sit down to do this, I feel the internal pressure to cut back. But I will say I really like going through this. I did feel a lot better not having broken this down into like started versus finished, just like these are the ones that I'm ongoing. I did actually really feel a lot better about doing this in the moment. I feel a lot less current guilt and shame about what I have on the go, even though, yeah, sure, there's a lot that I have on the go, but I will enjoy reading on in some of these books and perhaps making some hard decisions on other ones. That is it for me today. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. It really does help the channel out, and I'll see you guys next time. Have a great day.